guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video is going to be a rather large unboxing and book haul because truth be told, I cannot stop buying books. There's just been too many amazing new releases and too many books that I just want to get to right away. And luckily, thanks to this video sponsor, I was able to get cash back on some of these bookish purchases I'm about to show off today. Just truly fantastic if you ask me. That's right, today's video is sponsored by Rakuten, a service I have known and loved for so many years. But if you're not familiar, Rakuten is the largest cashback site. They have partnered with over 3,500 of the biggest brands and retailers out there to be able to bring you cashback, promo codes, and coupons all for free, which I think is amazing. I can get cash back on a lot of my bookish purchases when I shop through sites like Barnes & Noble. I get cash back on a lot of my clothing when I shop through sites like Madewell and Anthropologie, which is basically where my entire wardrobe is from. Home decor and other favorite cozy items from Walmart and Target. The world is literally my oyster. You can get cash back through Rakuten by either shopping through the links on their website and shop on the sites just like you normally would, or by using their browser extension, which automatically lets you know when you're shopping online if those sites are eligible to have cash back through Rakuten, which I think is amazing. It'll also let you know about promo codes and coupons too. But in super exciting news, Rakuten is actually running a very special deal starting today and through tomorrow. You're able to get 10% cash back through so many of their different partner sites. And I also have an extra special sign up link. By signing up via the link in my profile, you'll be able to get a $30 sign up bonus when you make a qualifying purchase. Truly love using their site and service. It's such an easy way to get cash back on so many of my online purchases, and it's so easy to kind of just add into your online shopping routine, especially if you have the extension. Again, I'll have that sign up link down below, but without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into all of the books I picked up for this video. But speaking of, the first box I actually have to unbox is from Barnes & Noble, which I'm not gonna lie, this is like the biggest bookish ravioli I think I've ever gotten, but I'm so excited about the books inside. The first book I have to show off was one of my most anticipated releases for the fall, and that is Masters of Death by Olivia Blake. I love this cover in edition. I almost got the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, but this green was just really calling out to me. But the setup and synopsis of this book just seems really quirky and weird and so seasonally appropriate. And look at that inside art too. Oh my gosh. This appears to be a multi-POV story. And the first character we're introduced to is Viola, who is a struggling real estate agent and also a vampire. And our current property, which she really needs to sell, is having a hard time making a splash in the market because it's actually haunted by an angry ghost who refuses to move on until his murder is solved. So then Viola seeks the help of a medium to try to figure out what in the world happened, and his name is Fox. And while he's most definitely a shameless fraud, he is also related to death, so I think he has some sort of talents. These characters become mixed up with one another, and I believe some sort of underworld quest begins to unfurl from there. Again, just conceptually speaking, this just sounds so interesting and fun. I love the cover, I love the name, I love an unlikely quest full of people who don't really want to go on a quest with one another. It just sounds like it could be so fantastic. The next book inside my Barnes & Noble ravioli package is Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. I recently did a video where I tier ranked a bunch of really popular fantasy books on Goodreads, and this is one of the books that was on that list that I had not read. And looking into it, it honestly just sounded so adorable and romantic with a little bit of fantasy, which I personally love. This is another haunted house centered story, but it definitely has more of a cozy, romantic leaning edge to it based on the synopsis. Our first main character we're introduced to is Merritt, who is a writer, and this book is set in 1846, and Merritt unexpectedly inherits an older home in Rhode Island. He moves there, he's looking forward to settling in, but the house is clearly temperamental, let's just say. Enter in our other main character, Hulda, who works at the Boston Institute for Enchanted Rooms, and she specializes in helping these homes settle and dealing with their magic. So she goes to this haunted house. They begin to work together to try to solve, what's going on. And I believe they begin to also form a connection. I just feel like this has such an endearing setup that just really calls out to me. I love historical settings with a fantasy twist. I feel like it personally works. I also love, cozy romances as well. So I've heard really good things about this. I was interested in it ever since I saw it within that list, and I quickly bought it. So I feel like I'll be reading and reviewing this soon. And the last book that's in my ravioli package is The Rabbit Hutch by Tess Gunty. I actually bought this book recently for a friend, and I honestly haven't been able to get the synopsis of it out of my mind ever since. It just sounds like something that is kind of unhinged, very intriguing and will be like hard to put down. The cover is also stunning and it won the National Book Award. So clearly it's a popular and lauded story already. So this story seems to be following a variety of different characters who all have very different stuff going on, but they do have one thing in common, and that is they're all neighbors together in the same apartment complex with thin walls, and I think their lives slowly become more enmeshed. Some of the characters we're introduced to are an online obituary writer, a young mother with a dark secret, a woman waging a solo campaign against rodents, as well as a woman who shares her apartment with 3 young teenage boys. And again, I think all of these characters are trying to seek out and find a meaning in their life in some way or capacity. Again, this book has fantastic reviews and also seems to utilize a lot of my personal favorite like writing devices. I feel like this could be a really quick and emotional and interesting read, so I decided to grab it and add it to my cart because that's what I seemingly am best at, if I'm being honest. The next book is a very exciting package, and it's also upside down. Oh yes, there we are. A Dragonsteel Entertainment box has arrived on my door, which can only mean one thing. This is the 4th and final secret project work by Brandon Sanderson. So now would be the time to skip this part of the video if you don't want to see any spoilers for the 4th secret project, but I thought it could be fun to find out what this book is together because I have truly no idea. So let's open up and see what's inside. Let's see what direction we're gonna get for the 4th and final book. Oh, she's pretty. She is a pretty, wow. Okay, hold on. And the 4th and final secret project is The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. It is the stunning red color, and look at those sprayed edges. Obviously, I have the leather-bound collection, which I got from backing the Kickstarter. And these also include full-page illustrations, as well as illustrations throughout. I'm actually currently behind on my secret project reading. I've only read the first 2 books, Tress and the Frugal Wizard's Guide to Exploring Medieval England, so I need to catch up with Yumi and the Painter as well as this book. But in this story, we follow our main character who is named Nomad, and he has been spending a large part of his life running from a relentless pursuit of like an evil power called the Night Brigade. At the beginning of this book, he finds himself on a new planet, which is a very difficult place to live, including a sun that can literally like melt the landscape around him. Is he able to survive this Night Brigade? Is he able to survive this new planet and explore? I'm curious about this one. Obviously, space set. I don't know if this is a Cosmere novel at all or how it's connected to the overall like Cosmere that Brandon Sanderson has created. I still really enjoy his standalone projects and work, so obviously this is going on my shelf. I'll be looking forward to picking this up and hopefully reading this soon. But yes, the 4th and final secret project novel is officially in my hand. The next book I have to show off is another newer release, and that is Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This, of course, is the sequel to One Dark Window, which I read last year and for the most part enjoyed. I wasn't sure if I was going to continue on with the series, personally speaking, but I saw a lot of reviews actually say that this second book was like leagues better than the first book, so I was a bit intrigued by that because I will say, while I didn't love the first installment, I thought many of the inputs were really interesting, including the magic system and the writing and the characters. I didn't love the romance, but I feel like there was space to improve. So because of those early reviews, I was sold. I'm not gonna lie. But this book is set in a dark world, which is slowly being like consumed by this evil mist. In this world, there's also a magic system centered around like kind of playing cards. There's not only a limited amount of these playing cards, but also they can do different things. For example, one makes you like irresistibly beautiful, another allows you to read minds. You kind of get the picture and idea. Our main character lives in this dangerous world, and she has been keeping a secret for most of her life, and that is she has this like voice of this sort of demonic power living in her head, which has always sort of protected her entire life. And one day when she runs across what she thinks are like highwaymen, but end up being kind of involved in rebellion and politics, everything is sort of turned upside down. Again, conceptually, I enjoyed parts of the first book, but I wasn't 100% sold, but I am really curious about this sequel. It reads so fast. It does have angst and melodrama, so I also grabbed this too. And the next book I have to show off is The Chalice of the Gods by Rick Riordan. That's right, we are back in the Percy Jackson universe, back with Percy Jackson, one of my all-time favorite characters from literally my entire life, and I could not be more excited about it. Percy Jackson is going to college, but before he can do that, he has to go on one final quest to get there. The band is back together, if you will. But basically, the setup and premise of this book is that Percy Jackson is about to graduate high school and he dreams of attending New Rome University, but to be able to get attendance, he has to complete 3 different quests to get 3 letters of recommendation to be able to attend. It just sounds so endearing and fun, and I'm just excited to not only be back in this world, but to see and read from Percy's point of view once again. Jackson. It's wild to think that I read Percy Jackson as like an 8-year-old, and now we've all grown up so much, you know what I mean? So obviously this was a must add to my bookshelf, onto my TBR, into my life. I love Percy. Alrighty, the next package to open. So this, I'm pretty sure, is something I'm very excited about. It's a new release, but it's not a fiction new release, let's say. And that is More is More by Molly Baz. I am a cookbook girl. I really enjoy Molly Baz's recipes and writing. I have her other cookbook. I've subscribed to her newsletter. Needless to say, when she released her second cookbook, it was immediate purchase and add to my life. I just feel like her recipes are so great for life, for parties. I also find them to be interesting in terms of their flavor pairing, and it personally pushes me outside of my own comfort zone. Her aesthetics are also just fantastic, like her font use and her imagery. Cookbooks are so beautiful, like the food photography and just the opportunity to read through recipes. There's something so fantastic about it. And wow, half chicken with caper chimichurri. I mean, that looks delicious. I can't wait to explore and cook some new recipes from this. I'll be sure to document that as well. But yeah, Molly Baz, new cookbook. I've now had cookbooks and back-to-back book hauls. Hopefully that doesn't get too far out of control, but it was because two people I really liked released cookbooks. So anyway, here we are. I got this. The next book I have to show off is Labyrinth's Heart by M.A. Carrig, which is the third and final book to the Rook and Rose series, the first one being Mask of Mirrors. And this I would describe as like a dark, almost Venetian-inspired fantasy series. It's really interesting. I found the magic system in particular to be rather strong in the first installment, and I've heard that the entire series only gets better and better book over book, which is really making me want to marathon the back half of it. In this story and in book one, we're introduced to our main character, Ren, and Ren has arrived at this glittering city of lies and deception with one goal and one goal only, and that is to secure a fortune for herself and for her sister by any means necessary. Basically, she begins to masquerade as an elite individual in this world, and she's trying to basically con her way into stealing a bunch of money for her and her sister. And honestly, it's fantastic. This book has a lot of different things going on. Obviously, we follow Ren and her goal and her abilities as she kind of navigates her way through this very tenuous political situation, trying to make connections in a very unknown place for her. But there's also other things going on in the city as well, and all of those things become rather interconnected. It has like a grim and griminess to it, and I really love the sort of economy-focused element of the politics in book one. And while I wouldn't say the first book was perfect, I was rather intrigued, and I'm looking forward to see how the plot is going to continue to take off in books 2 and 3. And now that book 3 is officially out, again, I already own book 2, we can marathon. Next up is a box full of not books, but something I love nevertheless, and I am looking forward to showing off. Hopefully you guys don't mind, but I am just so thrilled about this purchase. And that is, my friends, I have bought 2 new holiday puzzles. So with the upcoming holiday season, I am a big puzzler. I just love doing a puzzle. I love doing a puzzle, listening to an audiobook, watching a Christmas movie. You get the picture, you get the idea. So I decided to treat myself to 2 new puzzles from Galison, which is one of my favorite like art styles for puzzles out there. So the first one I got is this. It's like this Twilight Christmas village snowscape. I will say Galison puzzles can still be a little bit tricky because their lines aren't super sharp, but they're so flipping cute. I just couldn't help myself, so I got this one. And then I also decided to pick up this foil puzzle, which is also 1,000 pieces. And this is another cityscape one. We have an ice rink, we have taxi cabs. I love how I believe the windows are going to be like gilded. It just looks so beautiful and just gives me all of the holiday vibe. So yes, I did buy 2 puzzles for myself to enjoy this holiday season, and I can't wait. So yeah, not book related, but cozy related, which counts around here. Alrighty, moving on to another package. We have 2 exciting bookish options in here. The first is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This, of course, is the 3rd and final book to the original Red Rising trilogy. I read Red Rising, and that is a bit of a tongue twister, a few months ago and thought it was okay, but obviously this is an incredibly beloved series, so I thought instead of just checking out book 2, I should maybe try to marathon books 2 and 3 within the same video so I can give like complete thoughts and feelings about everything in the original trilogy, if you will. But this series is kind of like a fantasy sci-fi hybrid tale. It's set in a world that is incredibly stratified, and it's stratified by color. People are organized in different groups by color and are also given different jobs depending on what color they fall into. We're introduced to our main character Dara, who is a red and is also the lowest rung within this hierarchy in this society. Due to a variety of events, Dara basically gets involved in rebellion and actually is like transformed into a gold, which is the highest color on this hierarchy, and he like enters school and begins to participate in this like Roman military competition. Again, the first one was just okay, but everyone says books 2 and 3 are like on another level. So here we are. I'm trusting you. I've now gotten myself book 3, and we're gonna see for myself. And then the second book that was in that package is Furies of Calderon by Jim Butcher. Recently, I've just gotten really in the mood to maybe reread this series. This was one of my first adult high fantasy series I ever read. I actually read it in high school due to a friend's like recommendation at the time, and I blew through all of the books. I was obsessed with this series. It's a classic fantasy setup following a main character who is a chosen one. We're introduced to him as he's kind of plucked from his small town, sent to military magic school, becomes really powerful, takes on evil forces. It's very like military leaning, magic leaning. I just really loved it at the time, and there's something just so nostalgic about this series, and I'm really curious if I would still enjoy it with a reread, because again, this was like one of my first encounters with adult high fantasy, and I also just love the lore of this series. Basically, Jim Butcher wrote it as a response to a challenge to write a series inspired by Pokemon and the Lost Roman Legion, so here we are. Yeah, I'm also a little nervous about reading this, like what if I don't love it as much, but there's really only one way to find out, and I have a soft spot for chosen one, middle of nowhere characters gaining all sorts of powers, and this is definitely that. It's also multi-POV, but so I picked up book 1, I also already own book 2, so maybe I'll get to these soon. The next book I picked up was Bliss Montage by Ling Ma. I have been kind of making my way back into the short story world. In general, I'm trying to read more literary fiction, and I feel like I've been failing miserably at that, and I feel like short story collections are a great way to like dip my toe back into reading more literary fiction, because I only have to really read it one story at a time, so it's easy to fit in perhaps between my like larger, denser reads. But Ling Ma is an author most known for their novel called Severance, but Bliss Montage I've heard such good things about, just that this is such an interesting collection of stories that will just boggle your mind. Ranging from a woman who lives in her house with her husband and all of her ex-boyfriends, to a story centering around an ancient folk ritual that will heal you of anything as long as you bury yourself alive. Again, I hear this is just bananas and fascinating. I also love short stories because it's really about the concept. Like, they don't necessarily have to be this full, round, robust thing. It can just be like a snapshot of an idea and an experience, and I also think that can be incredibly delightful. So I grabbed this, and I really feel like I'm going to love it. Next up, I have a couple of books sent to me by a publisher, so let's open those up. I'm so weak. Ooh, this is a whoa. I actually have another book by Jim Butcher to show off, and that is The Olympian Affair, which is the second book to the Cinder Spire series, which I've actually read the first book, which released many, many years ago, and I'm so excited to see that there's finally a new installment out into the world. And before I talk about this series, let me just open up this second package, because I have a sneaking suspicion, aha, yes, I was right, that the second book the publisher passed along is the first book to this series, which is The Aeronauts Windlass. And I have to say, I'm really digging this cover redesign. They're so beautiful. If you're not familiar, this series is basically set in a world full of like steam power technology and noble families that have a lot of power, and like it's all about merchants and trades, and there's basically these huge spires that exist in this world that go all the way into the sky, and noble families kind of control the goings on in each of these spires. We follow our main character, who has been very loyal to one of these spires his entire life. He runs and operates a merchant ship, but after a variety of events, his ship is damaged and grounded, but he's offered an opportunity community to basically become a part of this mission. And if he does, his ship will be restored. No problem. I remember reading and enjoying book one, but honestly, this book came out all the way in 2015 and I read it right when it came out. So needless to say, I will have to reread book one before I can jump into book two. But I'm so excited to have these new editions on my shelf and in my life. I'm having a little bit of a Jim Butcher moment in this book haul, which I'm not mad about. While we might not love the Dresden Files around here, I do love the Codex Alera, and this is high fantasy, so love to see it. The next book I have to show off was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I've also already read it and have an entire reading vlog dedicated to that reading experience, and that book is Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This is Cassandra Clare's adult fantasy debut, and wow, was I absolutely riveted and entertained by the story. But this book is set in the fictional world of Castellan, but here power and wealth kind of rule the day, and all of the royals and powerful families kind of seek endless amounts of thrills to keep them entertained. And while there is a kingdom, politically speaking, there's also things called charter families who basically own all the trade rights for various like raw materials, meaning there's lots of different power players in the city and there's lots of money to go around. In this book, we're following the two main perspectives of two characters. The first is Kell, who is someone called a sword catcher. Basically, since he was a small child, he has had to act oftentimes as the stand-in for the prince of the realm. They're very close, they're best friends, but he's also trained to die and protect this prince at any moment. And obviously that creates a complicated relationship dynamic for a variety of reasons. The other main character we follow is named Lynn, and Lynn comes from a religious and cultural group that actually has magic and predominantly uses this magic to not only heal people, but also provide charms to customers who are interested in buying them. It's important to note that Lynn's community is the last remaining group of people who can access magic in this world, and therefore they are treated differently and horribly because of it. They're ostracized, there are different rules and laws that they must follow, impacting basically all aspects of Lynn's everyday life. These two characters kind of cross paths in unexpected ways, but honestly the pacing of this was so well plotted. It's so interesting. Book one was all about the political setup, so much slow burn from a political and a relationship point of view. I flew through this book, and I'm just so excited to have a non-Shadowhunter fantasy story by Cassandra Clare. It's so fun. Alrighty guys, I promise we're officially in the home stretch. I'm on my last two books, which are actually both signed, which is pretty fun. The first is The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. I now officially have 3 Lauren Groff books on my bookshelf, and I have yet to read one of them. But what can I say? All of her books have just such intriguing synopses that are so wildly different from one another. I can't help but to just keep picking up her books, and one day maybe I'll marathon them all at once. This story sounds really interesting to me. It's a historical set story. We basically follow a young servant girl who flees into the night, escaping the colony that she once lived in. And from there we follow her as she goes on this dangerous quest through the wilderness alone. This is said to be both thrilling, dark, and intriguing, as well as like a fable of the ages. I, again, have not read a Lauren Groff book, but I've heard such excellent things about her writing. I also appreciate the sort of historical influence of this, but I also feel like it might be a little bit horrifying just based on the setup and synopsis, or at least anxiety inducing. So I'm curious about it. It's not very long. I'm just so intrigued by its comparison to a fable. I feel like this is going to have sort of a timeless quality to its narrative style, which I also enjoy. So I'm looking forward to this one, and maybe I will start with this, but I also have The Matrix and Fates and Furies by her. So if you have an opinion on where I should start, please let me know. And then the last book I picked up is Wellness by Nathan Hill. I couldn't help myself. I saw a signed copy of this at my local bookstore, and I thought, you know what? Let's grab it. You know what I mean? There we go, Nathan Hill. And I just have a feeling I'm really gonna like this book. It seems to take place over a rather large swath of time. And in particular, we're watching the formation and then the entire expanse of like one relationship between Jack and Elizabeth. Jack and Elizabeth meet in the 90s. They fall in love in Chicago, and they're both a part of the art scene at the time. And I believe this book like heavily follows that art scene, but also fast forward 20 years later, they're married and they're trying to grapple with the kind of changes of their life, the changes of their relationship, the new inputs of their relationship, and also kind of how they're drifting apart a bit. And what really intrigues me about this book is that I think it explores like all the different facets of this relationship, but we also follow these characters on like solo, personal journeys as well, which I like. I'm just curious about this. This author, again, is like a really lauded author. He wrote The Knicks, I want to say, and this book just being so centered on a relationship just really called out to me. I love a 90s setting even partially taking place, and the art scene part of this also sounded cool. So I won't lie, this was a bit of an impulse buy, but I don't think it was a bad impulse buy. Alrighty guys, those are all of the books I picked up recently. Again, big shout out to this video's sponsor, which is Rakuten. Again, if you use the link in my description, you'll be able to get a $30 sign up bonus with a qualifying purchase. And be sure to keep an eye out for the special 10% cash back, which is running today and tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!